Woodstock, Ontario, a place where life was quiet and predictable, a community woven with trust. Here lived the Stafford family. Rodney Stafford, a dedicated father. Tara McDonald, a devoted mother. Their son, Daryn, and their vibrant, 8-year-old daughter, Tori. With her boundless energy and love for animals, Tori was the heart of her family and beloved by everyone on their street. On April 8, 2009, that tranquility was shattered. Tori, walking home from Oliver Stevens Public School, disappeared. The innocence of Woodstock was lost, leaving a family and community grasping for answers. This is the story of Tori Stafford, whose sudden disappearance would reveal darkness hidden in a quiet town, forever changing its people. On April 8, 2009, a beautiful spring day dawned in Woodstock, Ontario. The sun rose brightly, illuminating the town with a sense of hope and warmth. It was a typical morning in the Stafford household, where laughter often filled the air. 8-year-old Victoria Tori Stafford woke up to the smell of her mother, Tara McDonald, cooking breakfast in the kitchen. As she rubbed the sleep from her eyes, the excitement of a new day began to bubble inside her. Inside the Stafford kitchen, Tori sat at the table, her brown hair tied in 2 playful pigtails. Tara prepared her favorite breakfast, pancakes with maple syrup, the golden syrup glistening in the morning light. Tori loved pancakes, and her mother made them with an extra sprinkle of love. As she ate, Tori shared her dreams with Tara, talking about wanting to be a veterinarian when she grew up. "I want to help all the animals, Mom," she exclaimed with a bright smile, her enthusiasm infectious. Tara, knowing how passionate her daughter was, encouraged her, saying, "You can do anything you set your mind to, sweetheart." The bond between them was palpable, filled with warmth and mutual respect. By 8:30 a.m., Tori was ready to leave for Oliver Stevens Public School, her backpack filled with books, a lunch packed with love, and a heart full of excitement. Tara called out, "Don't forget your lunch, Tori," as she grabbed the bright pink bag that was just as vibrant as her personality. With a quick hug and kiss goodbye, Tori dashed out the door, her laughter trailing behind her. Tori walked the familiar path to school, chatting with friends along the way. The air was crisp with the promise of spring, and the streets were filled with the joyful sounds of children heading to school. Tori loved this time of day, the laughter and chatter of her friends bringing her so much happiness. They shared stories, played games, and planned what they would do after school. When Tori arrived at school around 8:45 a.m., the sun was shining brightly, illuminating the playground filled with happy children. She waved to her classmates and eagerly joined them for the morning announcements, her heart racing with anticipation for the day's activities. It was just another ordinary day filled with learning, laughter, and friendship. Tori spent her morning engaged in her favorite subjects, eagerly participating and soaking in every moment. A clock inside the classroom ticked toward noon. Tori could be seen enjoying lunch with her friends in the cafeteria, her laughter echoing as they shared jokes and stories. During lunch, Tori sat surrounded by friends, sharing stories and giggling about the latest playground adventures. She felt safe, loved, and happy in her school environment. After lunch, the children returned to their classrooms, where Tori's energy remained contagious, as she participated in class activities and discussions. For Tori, every moment was filled with possibility. Finally, the school day ended around 3 p.m., and Tori was filled with excitement to head home and share stories of her day with her family. She said goodbye to her friends, promising to see them the next day. The sun was still shining as she stepped outside, her heart filled with the joys of childhood. At approximately 3:30 p.m., Tori started her walk home, a journey she had made countless times before. She felt confident and secure, having navigated this route daily. The streets were filled with familiar sights and sounds, and she waved to neighbors she passed, a picture of innocence and joy. But unbeknownst to her, lurking in the shadows was a threat that would shatter her family's world. Moments after she left the school grounds, Tori would be approached by someone who would forever alter the lives of those who loved her. In the blink of an eye, the vibrant life she embodied would be extinguished, leaving behind an anguished community and a desperate family searching for answers. As Tori vanished, the echoes of her laughter would fade into haunting silence, marking the beginning of a tragedy that would grip Woodstock in its relentless grip. As the clock struck 5 p.m. on April 8, 2009, Tara McDonald stood in her kitchen, stirring a pot of spaghetti sauce. She had been eagerly anticipating her daughter Tori's arrival home from school, where they had planned a cozy family dinner together. Tori's vibrant energy often transformed their mealtimes into moments filled with laughter and stories, a sanctuary for their close-knit family. But today was different. Today, the cheerful ambience was cloaked in a growing sense of dread. Minutes ticked by, each one feeling like an eternity. With every glance at the door, Tara's heart sank further. Tori was known for her punctuality, a trait instilled in her by her mother. As a single parent, Tara had always emphasized the importance of responsibility and communication, and Tori had always respected that. But as the clock approached 5:15 p.m., Tara's worry transformed into anxiety. Tori had never been this late without at least sending a text. Just then, Daryn walked in, his youthful energy dimmed by the tension in the room. At 16, he was accustomed to the routines of family life, and he immediately sensed that something was off. "Where's Tori?" he asked, concern etched across his young face. Tara forced a smile, attempting to mask her growing fear, but her voice trembled slightly as she replied, "She's just running late. Honey, I'm sure she'll be home any minute." Yet deep down, Tara's intuition told her otherwise. Tara decided to call Tori's cell phone, desperately hoping to hear her daughter's cheerful voice on the other end. The phone rang, each tone echoing her mounting concern. When it went straight to voicemail, her heart dropped. She left a message, her voice betraying her fear. "Tori, sweetie, please call me back. We're starting dinner, and I'm getting worried." But as she hung up, an unsettling chill crept through her. With the sun beginning to dip below the horizon, Tara's mind raced through all the possibilities. Tori had a busy schedule, juggling school, friends, and extracurricular activities, but this felt different. Tara's thoughts were a whirlwind of dread. She envisioned every worst-case scenario. Finally, she decided to call Tori's close friends, hoping that one of them might have seen her. Each call brought no solace, only increasing worry as none of them had heard from Tori since school. At around 6 p.m., the anxiety became unbearable. Tara stepped outside, her voice cracking as she called out, "Tori, Tori, where are you?" Her voice echoed through the stillness of the neighborhood, but the only reply was the rustling of leaves in the evening breeze. The faint sounds of children playing in the distance were a stark contrast to her internal turmoil. Spotting a neighbor walking their dog, Tara rushed over, her heart pounding in her chest. "Have you seen Tori?" she asked, her voice laced with anxiety. The neighbor shook their head, and Tara felt her heart sink further. "I can't find her. She should have been home by now," she explained, her voice breaking as she fought back tears. Word quickly spread, and one by one, neighbors stepped outside, drawn to Tara's distress. They offered comforting words and reassurances, but the panic in Tara's chest felt insurmountable. "We'll help you look," one neighbor declared, determination shining in their eyes. The community's response was immediate, reflecting the bond they shared in this close-knit town. It was a chilling reminder that, in times of crisis, they would all come together. By 6:30 p.m., the mood had shifted from worry to a frantic urgency. Tara and Daryn joined the growing group of volunteers, and as they began to organize into search parties, the atmosphere shifted. A sense of collective determination filled the air, uniting the community in their mission to find Tori. Flashlights flickered on, illuminating the shadows of the darkening evening. As they set out into the night, the sound of their voices filled the air, calling out for Tori. Families searched parks, backyards, and local trails, desperately hoping for any sign of the girl who would brighten their lives. The streets, once alive with the sounds of children playing, now echoed with the anxious calls of her name. Each search party swept through the familiar landscapes, and as they walked through the quiet neighborhoods, They remained hopeful, but the darkness loomed ever closer. Tara stood on her porch, watching as her community searched tirelessly, feeling a mix of gratitude and helplessness. Her heart raced as she envisioned Tori, her beautiful, vibrant daughter, out there somewhere in the night. With every minute that passed, the urgency in the air thickened, and the shadows of doubt crept closer. Despite the support of her friends and neighbors, the gnawing fear in Tara's gut told her that time was running out. By 8 p.m., the local police arrived, the flashing lights of their cruisers slicing through the darkened streets. Officers stepped out, their expressions serious and focused. Tara's heart raced anew as she approached them, desperation in her eyes. They began to gather information, asking questions about Tori's last known whereabouts, her habits, and her friends. Tara recounted every detail, her voice trembling as she fought to maintain composure. The reality of the situation settled over her like a heavy blanket. Tori was officially missing. The police began to coordinate the search, bringing in additional resources and ensuring that every avenue was explored. Tara felt a mix of emotions. The presence of the police brought a flicker of hope, yet the gravity of the situation was overwhelming. Families continued to gather, and as night enveloped the town, they held onto the hope that Tori would be found safe, each prayer echoing into the darkening sky. As the night wore on, the community stood united, their hearts heavy with concern for Tara and her family. In the quiet moments, they shared stories of Tori, recounting her laughter and her spirit, each memory a reminder of what was at stake. Tara, enveloped in the warmth of her neighbors' support, clung to the hope that Tori would come home. As the sun rose on the morning of April 9, 2009, hope lingered in the air, but so did the anxiety of the McDonald family and their community. With Tori still missing, the investigation took a critical turn. Officers were determined to gather every possible clue that could lead them to the missing teenager. Among the first steps in their investigation was to review any available surveillance footage from the neighborhood. The police scoured footage from nearby businesses, hoping to catch a glimpse of Tori on the day she disappeared. Hours turned into an exhausting endeavor, with officers watching frame after frame of mundane scenes. As they pored over the footage, the fatigue weighed heavily on them, but they remained undeterred. They knew that a single frame could change everything. Just as hope seemed to dim, an officer spotted something significant. At 3:21 p.m. on April 8th, Tori appeared on the surveillance camera at a local convenience store. Her bright pink backpack was unmistakable as she walked confidently toward the entrance. In that moment, a mix of relief and dread washed over the officers. They had found a tangible lead, but questions flooded in. What happened after she left the store? The footage revealed Tori entering the store, a smile on her face as she waved to the cashier. She appeared composed and in good spirits, carrying herself with the youthful exuberance typical of a 15-year-old. As she left the store, she looked around and then headed in the direction of her home. The officers leaned closer to the screen, their hearts racing as they noted the timestamp, 3:24 p.m. This was the last confirmed sighting of Tori. With this new piece of evidence in hand, the officers shifted their focus. They meticulously analyzed the surrounding area captured in the footage. They knew that tracking Tori's movements after she left the convenience store was crucial. They began to examine other nearby cameras, hoping to create a timeline that would lead them to her whereabouts. One officer was tasked with interviewing the cashier who had served Tori that day. As the officer entered the store, the familiar jingle of the doorbell signaled their presence. The cashier, a middle-aged woman with a warm demeanor, immediately recognized the urgency of the situation. She shared what she remembered. Tori had been friendly, chatting briefly about school and her plans for the weekend. She mentioned that Tori seemed in good spirits and left the store without a care in the world. With the cashier's testimony adding valuable context, the officers returned to the surveillance footage, plotting Tori's likely route home based on the streets and sidewalks visible in the recordings. They studied the camera angles and the busy intersections that lined the path she would have taken. Each detail became significant as they worked to piece together the puzzle of Tori's disappearance. Then, One officer noticed a shadowy figure lingering at the edge of the camera's view just as Tori exited the store. The figure seemed to be watching her, their body language suggestive of an unusual interest. With growing intensity, they replayed the clip, studying the figure's movements, hoping for a clearer view. Who was this person? What was their connection to Tori? With the realization that this could be a crucial clue, the officers amplified their efforts to identify the mysterious figure. They contacted local businesses to gather any additional surveillance footage that might have captured Tori on her route home. They also began canvassing the area, asking residents if they recognized the figure and whether they had seen Tori since she left the store. The community, already deeply invested in Tori's safe return, rallied once more. Officers and volunteers combed the neighborhood, distributing flyers that featured Tori's picture and the details of her disappearance. The urgency of their efforts fueled a collective hope that someone might have seen or heard something, anything, that could help locate her. The police also shared the CCTV footage with the media, amplifying their reach and encouraging anyone with information to come forward. Back at home, Tara was glued to the news, her heart heavy with worry. The report featured the footage of Tori entering the convenience store, and Tara's stomach twisted as she watched her daughter's carefree demeanor on screen. As she listened to the anchor explain the search efforts and the potential lead from the CCTV footage, she felt a flicker of hope. But it was quickly overshadowed by the gnawing fear of what might have happened after Tori left the store. The discovery of the CCTV footage was a crucial turning point in the investigation, providing the first tangible clue in the search for Tori McDonald. But as the investigation continued, the question remained: where had Tori gone after leaving the store, and who was the figure watching her? The community and police were determined to find answers, but with each passing hour, the urgency of the search grew ever more critical. With the community in turmoil and the pressure mounting to find Tori McDonald, investigators turned their focus to a pair of individuals who would soon become central figures in this tragic story. Michael Rafferty and his then-girlfriend, Terry Lynn McClintock, both were known to law enforcement, and their backgrounds raised red flags as the investigation unfolded. Rafferty, a 28-year-old man with a somewhat troubled past, had a history of questionable behavior. Friends described him as charismatic but manipulative. Meanwhile, Terry Lynn McClintock, only 18 at the time, was known for her troubled upbringing, marked by a turbulent home life and previous run-ins with the law. Together, they seemed to form a volatile duo that would come to be scrutinized in connection with Tori's disappearance. Authorities soon discovered that Rafferty and McClintock were not only known to each other but also had a history of interactions with vulnerable young women. Reports surfaced indicating that McClintock had previously been involved in manipulative relationships, and her association with Rafferty raised concerns among investigators. Could they be involved in Tori's disappearance? Investigators delved deep into the past of both Rafferty and McClintock, uncovering a troubling pattern. McClintock had been charged with theft and other misdemeanors, but what alarmed authorities more was her history of being in the company of men who had been implicated in more serious crimes. Rafferty, for his part, had been on the police radar for previous offenses, which raised further suspicion. As the detectives pieced together their findings, they couldn't ignore the eerie similarities to other cases of missing young women in the area. They noted that McClintock had a pattern of befriending girls who were often at risk, which heightened their concern about her potential involvement in Tori's case. It became crucial to interview her and Rafferty to determine if they had any knowledge of Tori's whereabouts. On April 17, 2009, authorities brought McClintock in for questioning. They hoped that her cooperation would lead them closer to uncovering the truth about Tori's disappearance. During the interview, McClintock portrayed herself as a victim of circumstance, claiming she knew nothing about Tori's fate. However, her demeanor was inconsistent, and detectives noted her evasive answers. Despite her insistence on innocence, detectives were not convinced. Her body language, including fidgeting and an averted gaze, spoke volumes. They decided to confront her with the evidence they had collected, including the CCTV footage and details about her known associations with Rafferty. The tension in the room escalated, and it was clear that they were on the brink of a breakthrough. Detectives skillfully directed the conversation towards Michael Rafferty, probing for any insights she might have about his whereabouts during the time of Tori's disappearance. McClintock's expression shifted as they mentioned Rafferty's potential involvement, and a flicker of fear crossed her face. She hesitated but ultimately denied knowing anything about Tori. Simultaneously, authorities sought to gather more evidence against Rafferty. They spoke to his friends and acquaintances, digging into his past relationships, particularly any interactions with young women that might have been overlooked. They also searched Rafferty's home and vehicle for any incriminating evidence, hoping to find something that could connect him to Tori. In the days that followed, forensic teams combed through Rafferty's car, searching for anything that might tie him to the crime. A trace of evidence, a hint that would lead them closer to understanding what happened to Tori. The tension among the investigators heightened as they realized that every piece of evidence could either lead them to a breakthrough or deepen the mystery surrounding Tori's disappearance. Meanwhile, back in the interrogation room, McClintock's resolve began to falter. The detectives intensified their questioning, using the mounting pressure of the situation to their advantage. It was evident she was struggling with the weight of her decisions and the fear of implicating herself in a serious crime. As the minutes turned to hours, McClintock's facade crumbled. Under the weight of the evidence and the relentless questioning, she began to confess, her story unraveling in front of the detectives. She claimed that Rafferty had involved her in something sinister, and the truth of what she revealed would send shockwaves through the investigation. The confessions from McClintock not only connected Rafferty to Tori's disappearance but also opened a dark chapter into their relationship, one that intertwined with the fate of a young girl who had vanished without a trace. The pieces of the puzzle were finally starting to come together, but the deeper they dug, the more chilling the revelations became. As the investigation into Tori McDonald's disappearance deepened, the courtroom became the arena where the chilling truth would be unveiled. The trial of Michael Rafferty began in April 2011, drawing significant media attention and community interest. The stakes were high, and the air was thick with tension as the families of both Tori and the accused awaited justice. Tori's family, devastated and desperate for answers, filled the front rows, their hearts heavy with the weight of their loss. Every day of the trial was a reminder of the pain they endured, and the atmosphere was charged with emotion. Tori's parents, especially, were determined to see justice served, clinging to hope that the truth would finally come to light. At the defendant's table, Michael Rafferty presented a composed facade, but the chilling evidence against him was undeniable. Meanwhile, Daryn McClintock, who had pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in a separate deal, sat nearby. Her involvement and testimony would prove pivotal in unraveling the events leading to Tori's tragic fate. The prosecution opened their case with a harrowing narrative of the events leading up to Tori's abduction and murder. They painted a vivid picture of the moment she was last seen and the horrific turn of events that followed. Evidence presented included the chilling CCTV footage that captured Tori in the company of Rafferty and McClintock, leading to the realization of her fate. Footage from the day of Tori's disappearance revealed her walking alongside Rafferty, a seemingly innocent interaction that turned deadly. The prosecution argued that Rafferty had manipulated and exploited Tori's trust, leading her into a situation from which she could not escape. The courtroom fell silent as the prosecution recounted the heart-wrenching details of her last known whereabouts. As the prosecution delved deeper into the evidence, Tori's family members wept openly, their grief palpable. The harsh realities of the case weighed heavily on them, and every piece of evidence seemed to thrust them back into the painful moment of loss. They were forced to relive the trauma of that day, grappling with the horror of their daughter's fate. In contrast, the defense aimed to dismantle the prosecution's case by presenting Rafferty as a scapegoat, suggesting that McClintock was the true orchestrator behind the crime. They argued that her testimony was unreliable, driven by her desire to mitigate her own culpability. They sought to portray Rafferty not as a cold-blooded killer, but as a man ensnared in a tragic circumstance. When it was McClintock's turn to testify, the courtroom fell into a hushed silence. Her voice trembled as she recounted the horrifying events, painting a disturbing picture of Tori's last moments. She described how Rafferty had encouraged her to take Tori to a secluded area, insisting that they needed to eliminate any potential witnesses. McClintock's chilling confession was a pivotal moment in the trial. McClintock detailed how the situation escalated, how Tori, full of life and promise, had no idea of the danger she was in. The prosecution played recordings of McClintock's earlier confessions, where she admitted to being the one to inflict harm upon Tori. Her emotional breakdown in court, filled with tears and regret, painted a haunting portrait of a young woman caught in a web of violence and manipulation. Throughout her testimony, the jury remained transfixed, grappling with the disturbing reality of what had transpired. McClintock's candid account, filled with remorse and sorrow, provided the jury with critical insights into Rafferty's role in Tori's abduction and murder. The prosecution emphasized that McClintock's testimony was not just a plea for leniency, but a sincere effort to take responsibility for her actions. As the trial continued, the jury faced the daunting task of deciding Rafferty's fate. They were charged with sifting through the emotional testimonies, the chilling evidence, and the complex dynamics of guilt and responsibility shared between Rafferty and McClintock. Each juror bore the weight of the decision that would forever impact the lives of Tori's family and the community. After days of harrowing testimony and emotional confrontations, the moment of truth arrived. The courtroom filled to capacity as the verdict was announced, a moment that would forever change the lives of everyone involved. The community held its breath, praying for justice for Tori McDonald, a young girl whose life was cut tragically short. The aftermath of Tori McDonald's abduction and murder left a profound impact on her family and community. Vigils were held, celebrating Tori's vibrant spirit and fostering collective grief. Her parents became advocates for child safety, sharing their pain to raise awareness about toxic relationship. Tori's mother expressed the deep emptiness their family faced, igniting conversations about recognizing warning signs in relationships. The community responded by organizing workshops to educate families on safety and healthy communication. To honor Tori, her friends created a charity run, raising funds for organizations supporting violence victims. This act of remembrance fostered unity and healing. Tori's family planted trees as a symbol of growth and renewal, ensuring her legacy lived on. They also lobbied for legislative changes to improve child safety. On the anniversary of Tori's disappearance, friends and family released balloons, each carrying messages of love. Through their efforts, they transformed grief into a powerful movement for change. In the end, the story of Tori McDonald is one of resilience. Her tragic loss sparked a wave of awareness and advocacy, proving that even in the darkest times, love can inspire change. As the community continues to honor Tori's memory, they remind us all of the importance of standing together against violence, fostering a future where every individual can feel safe and valued.